Amazon was, by the time it launched a smartphone, one of the most powerful retail and technology companies on Earth. A company that had reshaped how the world bought books, goods, and cloud computing decided it could reshape how people carried the internet in their pockets. The result was a device that lasted barely a year on the market, triggered a write-down reported at approximately $170 million, and became a cautionary tale about what happens when a dominant company mistakes its own ambitions for customer needs. To understand the Fire Phone, you have to understand Amazon's position in the early 2010s. The company had already proven it could move beyond retail. The Kindle, launched in 2007, had become a genuine hit, carving out an entire category of e-reader devices and locking millions of customers into Amazon's digital content ecosystem. AWS was growing into the world's largest cloud infrastructure provider. The company's strategic logic was straightforward: own the device, own the relationship, own the transaction. If customers accessed Amazon through hardware, Amazon controlled, margins improved, loyalty deepened, and competitors lost oxygen. The Kindle's success was the proof of concept. It worked because it solved a specific, painful problem: carrying and buying books instantly. It was cheap enough that the hardware was practically disposable, and the real revenue came from content purchases afterward. That flywheel, inexpensive device, leading to recurring digital spending, was the engine Amazon wanted to replicate at a larger scale. A smartphone, in theory, would put Amazon's entire commerce ecosystem one swipe away, all day, every day. By 2012, Amazon had expanded its hardware ambitions considerably. The Kindle Fire tablet line was selling in meaningful volumes, offering a low-cost Android-based alternative to Apple's iPad. Amazon's content library stretched across books, music, video, and apps. The company reportedly began work on a phone project internally years before its eventual announcement, investing heavily in hardware engineering talent and acquiring companies with expertise in display technology and camera systems. When the Fire Phone was finally unveiled in June 2014, Amazon presented it as a premium device. It was priced at $199 with a 2-year AT&T contract, placing it directly against the iPhone and Samsung Galaxy flagships. The signature feature was called Dynamic Perspective, a system using 4 front-facing cameras to track the user's head and create a 3-dimensional visual effect on the screen. Another key feature, Firefly, could recognize physical objects, text, audio, and video, ostensibly to let users identify products and buy them instantly through Amazon. The structural crack was visible from the moment of announcement, even if it took sales data to confirm it. Amazon had confused what was impressive in a demonstration with what was useful in daily life. Dynamic Perspective was a technical achievement, but it solved no practical problem. It drained battery life, it added cost to the hardware, and it signaled something troubling about the development process. The company had reportedly spent years perfecting a feature that existed primarily to generate spectacle, not utility. The deeper weakness was strategic positioning. Amazon's entire retail philosophy was built on low prices, convenience, and removing friction. The Kindle succeeded precisely because it was cheap. The Fire tablets succeeded precisely because they undercut the iPad on price while offering good enough access to content. The Fire Phone abandoned this philosophy entirely. It launched at flagship pricing against the iPhone, a device with years of ecosystem maturity, developer loyalty, and brand desire that Amazon simply could not match on day one. The decisions made under pressure compounded the problem. Amazon chose AT&T as an exclusive carrier partner in the United States, immediately limiting the addressable market. The phone ran Fire OS, Amazon's forked version of Android, which meant it lacked access to Google's Play Store and the full library of Android applications. Users who bought the device found themselves cut off from Google Maps, Gmail, YouTube, and thousands of other apps they relied on daily. Amazon's own App Store was sparse by comparison. The unraveling was swift. Within weeks of the July 2014 launch, reports indicated that sales were extremely weak. By September, Amazon cut the price from $199 to 99 cents with a contract. That is not a typo. A device positioned against the iPhone was reduced to less than $1 in under 3 months. Even at that price, demand remained minimal. The phone simply offered no compelling reason to exist in a market where Apple and Google had spent years building ecosystems that customers depended on for work, communication, and entertainment. In the third quarter of 2014, Amazon reported a consolidated operating loss of $544 million. The company disclosed approximately $170 million in charges primarily related to Fire Phone inventory valuation and supplier commitment costs. By the following year, the device was effectively discontinued. Amazon did not release a successor. The aftermath reshaped Amazon's hardware strategy. The company did not abandon devices, but it shifted decisively toward low-cost, voice-driven hardware. The Amazon Echo, powered by Alexa, launched in November 2014, just months after the Fire Phone's failure became undeniable. The Echo succeeded exactly where the Fire Phone failed. It was affordable, it solved a real daily problem, and it created a frictionless path to Amazon's commerce ecosystem without asking customers to abandon their existing smartphone platforms. The Echo did not compete with the iPhone, it complemented it. The Fire Phone's failure did not damage Amazon's overall trajectory in any lasting way. The company's retail and cloud businesses were large enough to absorb the loss. But the episode revealed a genuine vulnerability in the company's decision-making process during that period. Reporting at the time suggested the project had been driven heavily from the top, with significant emphasis placed on the dynamic perspective feature despite internal skepticism about its consumer value. When a company's testing culture cannot override executive enthusiasm, expensive mistakes follow. The competitive landscape also offered no mercy. Apple's iPhone 6 launched in September 2014 with a larger screen, addressing the single biggest complaint users had about previous iPhones. Samsung's Galaxy line continued to mature. Google's Android ecosystem was deep and growing. The Fire Phone entered a market where the two dominant platforms had spent 7 years accumulating developer support, accessory ecosystems, carrier relationships, and user trust. Amazon attempted to shortcut that accumulation with spectacle and price cuts and discovered that neither worked. The broader industry lesson is precise. Dominance in one market does not automatically transfer to an adjacent market, especially when the adjacent market has already consolidated around platforms with deep network effects. Amazon understood ecosystems better than almost any company alive. Its failure was not ignorance of ecosystem dynamics. It was the belief that Amazon's brand and content library alone could overcome the switching costs customers faced when asked to leave iOS or Android behind. The The Kindle worked because no smartphone adequately solved long-form reading in 2007. The Echo worked because no existing device adequately solved ambient voice commerce in 2014. The Fire Phone failed because the smartphone market in 2014 was not a gap waiting to be filled. It was a fortress already occupied. And Amazon, for all its logistical brilliance, arrived at the gates without the one thing that mattered most: a reason for anyone inside to open them.